Hello, everyone. It is Monday, the 30th of September, 2024. It is also in Canada, a day of reconciliation. And let's see if Justin Trudeau goes surfing into Tofino again this year, completely pooching it off. I'm trying not to swear, so I'm trying to come up with other words to use in replace of the F word, which is really hard because it's a very, it's a good word to use. It's a whole word that can be used for like a variety of different things and events and emotions. And anyway, but I'll try. Yeah, like I was saying yesterday, I don't know. Yeah, I did say it yesterday. I had a bunch of wood dropped off and to pile and cut a little bit more. And I piled my front porch, but I still have to get at least half this cord into the back porch and ready for winter. Anyway, and the way I'm piling it, I want it to be very specific. And so I don't like it where it's piled like regular cords, where it's just like piled on top of each other and then placed like either leaning against something or like out in the elements. I like it to be piled at like in squares or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, it's like this. Yeah. So this is just like a small stacks on my front.
Okay, this Kamala Harris story.
Small stacks on my front porch like this. Again, so there's separation. It's covered by the elements. I'm gonna get a platform, or not a platform, but like a barricade for the this side here. Put like a big piece of plywood or something, maybe, just to make sure that the elements don't get it from that side, from the east side. And yeah.
Okay, this Kamala Harris story is getting.
But I digress.
Autophagy. It's not fasting. It's not.
Okay, this Kamala Harris.
I want you to see this.
Okay, this Kamala.
And I want people to like, share, and subscribe. And I want people to share this video. It's not groundbreaking like the reality of the earth stuff, but very interesting information that really fucking needs to be looked into. Damn it, I said the F word. And then go down your own rabbit holes. Don't take anything I say at face value. Don't take anything Candace says at face value. Do your own research and go on uncensored browsers, because even when you go on safe searches or moderate searches, I was talking to a friend about this yesterday, and you're getting filtered. You're getting content that's being downgraded or filtered, not even being seen on your browsers, because you're actually censoring yourself. So you actually have to take your searches off, like any form of like safety, whether it be a safe search, moderate search, whatever. No, take it off. Use a Proton account. I use a Proton Plus account, and I connect on a VPN. And if I'm not getting the information from Canada that I know is being blocked, then I'll connect on other countries, and I'll get my information that way. And so maybe I'll be able to give you an example this time. I've tried to share this before. I think I have been able to, but before I get into Candace Owens, because it's very important what she's sharing. Okay, so it is showing. Okay. So I have it disconnected right now, but you can see I can do a quick connect, which would connect me in Canada. Or if you go down here where I'm scrolling, there's multiple different countries that you can connect to. And there's varying degrees of censorship in every single country. And words even in the search engine that you just won't see. But anyway, the United States is on here as well. So if I do a quick connect, it'll just land me on like the closest network to me or whatever that can protect me. Yeah, so, but I can also, even on this page right here, connect specifically to the US if I want to, or Iceland or wherever. And then there's NetShield. I have it where don't block, block malware only. I have it where it's block malware, ads, and trackers. And anyways, there's more to this app, but I'll get on with the show with Candace Owens.
Kamala Harris story is getting crazy, and it's getting creepy. So last night we decided to continue our research to see if we could find birth certificates and marriage certificates and death certificates, which could further signify those points. And indeed it did. As speculated, we were able to confirm that Kamala's Black grandmother that she showed us in that picture died in 1960, before Kamala was born. I can show you right now her death certificate. As you can see there, it says that she died in July of 1960. And so this is a huge scandal. Just an absolutely huge scandal. Kamala Harris published in her book that she was standing next to her Grandma Beryl. But Grandma Beryl died in 1960, 4 years before Kamala Harris was born. Okay, this Kamala Harris story is getting crazy and it's getting creepy. So last night we decided to continue our research to see if we could find birth certificates and marriage certificates.
Okay, sorry I played that. Yeah, Kamala Harris. I've shared this on previous videos. October 20th, 1964. That's when she was born. So her grandmother died 4 years before she was born, yet she has a picture of her when she was, you know, a teenager or whatever. They lie. Barack Obama has lied. Michael Obama has lied. Bridget Macron has lied. And so was Emmanuel Macron, his husband. And there's so much more. And I know people don't like it when I say that. People, it does elicit emotional responses in people. It's very negative. Even people within my own network, when I share this information, it does make people upset because they're like, why are you sharing this? I'm like, because literally these are the people that are reading off the scripts. They're ones that are enabling and supporting the these scripts that are being pushed on us. It's causing a lot of harm and suffering on societies all over the place. But the people that are pushing this and enabling this and supporting this, they're the ones that are profiting from it. So there's no avenue in their lives where they're going to stop what they're doing, right? And people are blackmailed, they're bribed. If you look at the Diddy list, the P Diddy list, there's way more people, from what we consider first world countries that are on that list than even the Epstein list, right? And Diddy, who was he involved with? People like Ellen, people like Oprah, people, you name it, Usher. Like there's so many people that have been in, Chrissy Teigen, that have been involved in very unorthodox, to say the least, and disgusting criminal behaviors for decades, and they've been getting away with it. And people have been actively trying to get this information out there, even within music lyrics, within shows, to just like as a sarcasm to try to uncover the truth or get the truth out there in a way where they're less at risk of retaliation against people that want to keep this stuff quiet. But even with the CIA, they have been directly involved in so many different countries, and like disrupting elections or altering elections, assassination attempts, kidnapping, torture, rape, etc., and involving again like the local populace as well, including people within governments and stuff like that. And so Hollywood, like I've said, celebrities. I think I might have shared something else on my. I'm just going to go back here. Because also with game fixing for sports, there have been people that have admitted that the quarterbacks will go to certain people within organizations and for price fixing and say like, hey, what's going to be the score or whatever next week, and they'll assist and enable in the results of the sports teams playing in order to make money. Gambling. I don't know if I shared it. I did share it in a message with someone. I just want to see if I can get it. Again, it's just interesting. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, this is another one. Oh, law enforcement in the U.S. Torturing and shooting people just because of their skin color. No, anyway. Actually, maybe I saved it. I don't know how to look at that stuff. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. Professional accounts. More. Saved. Maybe I didn't. I'll put on the video because I do have to leave no later than like 10:35 because I have physio, because I have at least one tear in the meniscus, but I also have a front tear. And anyway, I'm going to start with Nancy Pelosi. I like the title. Should be prosecuted for insider trading. And this is from Jimmy Dore.
Come see us on tour. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona with a special celebrity guest on that show. Columbus, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Oh, so Donald Trump, have you seen, I think this was yesterday, maybe? He wants to prosecute Nancy. So Nancy Pelosi, her husband, they do these insider stock trading deals, right? So it's come to light that he sold 5,000 stocks in Visa right before they announced a lawsuit and an investigation against Visa for trying to rig the debit card thing. So their stock has plummeted. And right before their stock plummeted and they announced that, all of a sudden, Paul Pelosi, he knew to sell all that stock in Visa. It's just a coinky dink. Just a coinky dink. That's all. But so here's what Trump has to say about it.
But they went in there, and everyone knows they threatened the 25th Amendment. They threatened him with the 25th Amendment.
First of all, they didn't need to threaten Biden with the 25th Amendment. They could have just taken him and said, hey, we're going to go to Six Flags today. And just ditched him. Okay. He doesn't, anyway, he's not going to remember what rides he's been on. I want to go on the log flume. And then he could be soaking wet. And you're like, okay, time to go, Mr. President. I want to go on the log flume. No, you've been on the log for your son. Okay, here we go.
But they went in there, and everyone knows they threatened the 25th Amendment. They threatened him with the 25th Amendment. They said, Joe, you're going to get out. And Nancy Pelosi led the charge. And Nancy Pelosi has a little problem because her husband sold their Visa stock. They had a lot of Visa stock one day before Visa was announced that Visa is being sued by the Department of Justice.
Wow, Paul Pelosi sold all their Visa stock. Well, you don't have.
So how many years I've been saying that it's not only people within Senate and within cabinet in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, in New Zealand, in the US, like I've already mentioned, but they get their family members and their friends, and they're the ones that are also involved in the shares and stocks in the military pharmaceutical industrial complex and their affiliates that work with them in order to enable this to keep on happening. And so Northrop Grumman, which is another military industrial complex, there were shares and stocks by Marco Mendicino's wife when he was the public safety officer, and even beyond that. And he, this guy needs to be investigated for so many crimes against humanity and the racketeering and insider. Like, there's so much that he's actually done that's criminal, that has actually caused suffering and death of Canadians, and jail and charges and homelessness and things like that. And no one's calling that out. These are facts. If you look at the financial data of people that are working within cabinet and Senate and the people that they're married to, their children, their extended family and stuff like that, this needs to be looked at, ladies and gentlemen. It is criminal activity. And when they're voting on policies or implementing bills and all these other mandates and stuff like that, and they're doing it because it's going to profit them, including involving us in wars and forced inoculations and locking us into our homes where we can't see our families, like including for funerals, for weddings, for the births of children, like anyway, jail. And there are people that are still working in cabinet, including Justin Trudeau, that is like close to collapsing, crippling our country, and the radical measures that they're pushing, including, with Stephen Guilbeault involved in this as well as the climate expert, activist, extremist, that radical views and policies and measures they're implementing, even with Pablo Rodriguez when he was the heritage minister. Like, again, like, these names are going to be stuck in my head forever because I want them to go to jail. And I do hope that at some point I will be seen as some kind of a whistleblower expert witness to be on the stand speaking out against these motherfuckers. And I hope they get jail because they deserve it. Anyway, I'm going to carry on with this, but anyways, no, I'm gonna move on from that because I do have a busy day, and I did want to share. I did find that video. It's a longer video with Pat Sajak. And I remember this. It was a shorter clip, but we're gonna get to it.
And it makes some pretty hair-raising charges against
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
a lot of folks involved with the National Football League. The title says a lot of it: "Interference: How Organized Crime Influences Professional Football." Please welcome its author, Dan Moldea. Dan. What are you hearing from the powers that be? Anything?
They just want me to go away right now.
We've spoken to them, and they don't want to talk about it either. They have nothing to say.
But they're not denying anything, and they're not refuting any of the facts.
Let me talk about some of the major charges. And I just jotted down a few of the. I mean, you're saying, for example, virtually every team owner gambles on football teams.
Well, I'm saying that no fewer than 26.
That's
NFL team owners have documented ties. Past and present NFL team owners have documented business ties to either the gambling community and or the organized crime syndicate. I'm also saying that no fewer than 70 NFL games have been fixed.
Now that's pretty rough stuff. You're saying no fewer than 70 NFL games have been fixed. You mean the outcome, the point spread, what?
I'm saying the points were shaved and thereby fixed. Yeah.
How does this happen?
Well, I first got into this about 1983. Vincent Persani, who is the head of the Michigan State Attorney General's Office Organized Crime Division, told me, if you're going to do a book about the NFL, Dan, you're going to have to get into this guy, Don Dawson, because he was fixing games. We knew it. I went to my friends and my sources at the Internal Revenue Service, the Organized Crime Intelligence Division. They said Don Dawson was fixing games. I went to the FBI, the Organized Crime and Racketeering section of the Justice Department, and Strike Force field offices. Everybody told me what Don Dawson was fixing games. At that point, I had enough evidence to print that allegedly Don Dawson was fixing NFL games. He was a major bookmaker in the Midwest. I then went to Dawson. I tracked him down. I jumped through all kinds of hoops to interview him. And when I interviewed him on about the 7th or 8th interview, he admitted to me that he had personally participated in the fixing of no fewer than 32 NFL games.
How does that happen?
He liked to work with the quarterback. He would go to the quarterback would come to him and say, I need some bread. What's the line on the game this week? And the bookmaker would say, you guys are favored by 6 points. And then the reply was, we're not going to cover the spread. And basically that was it.
Now, do you name players?
Oh, sure. I name players. And also in 1979, I go into the specifics of 8 fixed games that were allegedly fixed by 2 referees who were investigated by both the FBI and the IRS. And I list the 8 games on page 308 of the book.
Yeah. Are drugs involved in this at all?
Yeah, drugs are the real variable in all of this. I mean, when a drug dealer has a relationship with a player, there's an extortionate edge to that situation whereby that dealer has that player's career in his hands because of the drug policies within the NFL for throwing a person out. Within the past few years, no fewer than 9 NFL teams have been investigated because their players were receiving drugs from gamblers. Now, I know gamblers who on principle refuse to sell drugs, but I'm not aware of many drug dealers who on principle refuse to gamble. And the key here is that the NFL is very aware of the fact, and their worst case scenario is the player who's strung out can't pay his bill to his dealer, and so the dealer comes to him and says, hey, you owe me money, and the dealer says, and the player says, I told you I can't pay it, and the dealer says, that's okay, but now you're going to come and work for me.
Now, the obvious question, you're talking about all these games being fixed. You're talking about all these people involved. You're talking about going to various agencies, and they're saying who the people are involved. Why has this gone uncovered if this is the case?
What I'm also alleging in the book is that no fewer than 50 legitimate investigations of corruption within the NFL have been either suppressed or just flat out killed as a result of a sweetheart relationship between NFL security, which is the internal police force within the league, and a variety of federal and state and local law enforcement agencies. I'm a big baseball fan, and I have more respect for baseball right now because of the way it's handled the Pete Rose case in the open and honest manner that it's handled this case than I've ever had before. I have more confidence in baseball because it's handled.
Well, how do these investigations get quashed?
Basically, the NFL security people, who are all former Justice Department people, will go to their old colleagues in the Justice Department or in these various law enforcement agencies, and they'll say, we can handle this internally. Let us handle internally so that we're not getting all the publicity that we would be getting. And so to all intents and purposes, these investigations I can cite chapter investigation. Again, I cite about 50 in the book.
It is a strange sport because it is the one sport where you can go to a game and come away, even if your home team has won, disappointed because you're not as much interested in the outcome as the points.
Yeah, it's a situation where you have a game where the score is 21-20. There's 30 seconds left on the clock. The home team, you're up in the stands, and the home team has the ball on the 30-yard line. Now, the problem is that the home team had to give 3 points in the game. Now, the quarterback goes down on one knee and the people in the stands boo. Now, they're starting to legalize gambling in Oregon. They're going to have a sports lottery, NFL lottery in Oregon, Kentucky. I mean, the state isn't in the bookmaking business for eleemosynary or philanthropic purposes. They're going to be in this to make money. They're going to take a 40 to 60% skim of the handle of the total pool of bets. And in the end, they're going to educate the public as to how to gamble, how to use the point spread. And then the public is going to realize that it can get a bigger bang for its buck from Charlie the bookie, the friendly local bookmaker at the corner bar, who's going to be put up $11 to win 10 and taking a 10% vigorish or commission on the losing Betsy books.
Now, is all this, is what you have written here going to get things unearthed?
Well, I'm hoping that there'll be a federal investigation, hopefully the Senate Select Committee, to investigate organized crime's influence in all of professional sports, not just football, but on baseball and basketball as well. I'm hoping that there'll be registration and licensing of anyone with a financial interest in a professional sports team, that there'll be public disclosure of financial transactions involving professional sports teams, that there'll be a further examination of public ownership of teams so that the citizens of the cities in which these teams play, the public can have literally a piece of stock in those companies. I'm also afraid that the illegal gambling economy has become an adjunct to the First Amendment because of the insistence by the sports media to print and broadcast the betting line and to hire odds makers and handicappers for the purposes of...
That is true. You read the newspaper and the point spread is in there, and it's obviously in there to give you information for gambling, which is
gambling is still...
Yep. Price fixing. Sorry, I mean that too. Sports fixing. Score fixing, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I don't really watch sports. I used to love watching sports when I was a kid, especially hockey. I'd watch hockey all the time. I liked the Habs, the Montreal Canadiens, and I remember it was like 93, I think, is when they won the Stanley Cup. And yeah, I was watching in the Gaspé Z with my family, watching it on using a generator. Okay. I want to share this. A new theory. This is by John Levy, who I love. I haven't liked it or anything like that yet because I haven't actually watched this. I wanted to watch this fresh and do a reaction video like I like doing sometimes and watch it with you. And I've watched a lot of his other content. I recommend you do if you don't know who he is. Great videos. And that's Dougie.
In this week's video, I will propose a new theory. I thank you for joining me. I love you all. God bless. And of course, welcome. I want to look at this showcase today. It's part of the app. It's a little feature at the bottom. The Old World Catalog, and these are all things that community members have shared. One of the best parts is this community tab, and we can see a bunch of subcategories. It's almost overwhelming. It's really, really good. Good snapshot of the old world. And again, it's free with the app. It shows just how vast this body of work is. I'm almost glad all of this was put on the shelf for so long and given a very simple-minded explanation as far as the mainstream is concerned, but I also worry that it's ripe for misinterpretation by myself and others. Most often I say I don't know to avoid this, to attempt to leave everything on the table. I think a notion in this community is that it was all very beautiful and harmonious. And what a wonderful world. And it may have been. And I've said it before, but it may have also been a horrible world. I mean, everything has this perfect symmetry. It's a world of perfection. And is a world of perfection so great? Many of you know I built my house. And one thing I love about my house is the imperfections, the lack of planning, and making up for that lack of of planning in the finishing stages. Something can always be finished, but if you allow it, it takes on a form of its own. After looking at so many of these buildings, again, I think we see a perfection. Oftentimes we're told these belong to royalty, and I appreciate beauty and intricacy, but I do think it's a little cold. It's a little too large. Take this photo, for example. This is fine if you're in a warm climate, but if it's cold out, snowing, this is a stupid building. So beautiful, of course, such good quality, but it's clearly been repurposed. These people are primitive. They've turned these arched windows or entrances into stoves. It makes sense. You don't need so many windows and doors. This is going to be very difficult to heat. At the highest point, my house is 12 feet tall. I built it that way so that I could have a sleeping quarters, a loft, and that's a pretty good feature. Even in a structure like this one that we're looking at, you could have a whole second floor, perhaps 3 floors. But these people and myself would never build such tall ceilings unless you had the ability to recirculate the air, like a modern ventilation system, some ducting that would move the hot air back down. And there's no doubt, again, that the people do not match the buildings, are merely tourists or squatters. And I really think it lacks soul. And clearly people could build whatever they wanted. Material procuring and transport seem to have been no problem, but yet everything has this very beautiful, castle-y, Greco-Roman, whatever terms you want to give them, style. Nothing really original. I mean, yes, the features will vary, but pretty much repeating themes. Domes, spires, arches. Super, super, super beautiful and intricate. Don't get me wrong. But again, cold. Beautiful yet cold. And I think, and of course I don't know, that there is something slightly oppressive about such a perfect architecture. It seems painstaking and oppressive, even to ask somebody to build something like this. Like insulting, pompous, and egotistical, and yet tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Every old world building in every city and nation packed with structures like this. Hundreds of years before our horse and carriage is introduced, is perfected, before the crane, before even the steam-powered implements. And usually we're given short windows of construction for these structures, which is clearly BS. I think they may have taken 100 years to build, and I think they may have required tens of thousands of laborers, and perhaps oppressed laborers who would do nothing but fit stones for their entire lifetime. Now, of course, reminding you that I don't know, these may have been 3D printed. Today you can order small miniatures, 3D printed miniatures of many buildings, cathedrals, usually sold in tourist gift shops. This could be 3D printed. Anything. But I tend to rule that out when it comes to buildings with individual bricks or individual blocks. A 3D printer would just make these superficial. They wouldn't go throughout the structure. Now, they may have had more advanced 3D printers than we have today. Some people believe that angels may have built these structures. So an angel now is like a spiritual 3D printer. Same thing. But if that were the case, I don't think they would have used materials that weathered the way we see here. They would have used something more like lapis lazuli, or maybe some quartz, or pure gold. Why the hell not if you're an angel? Why use a less superior material? Surely the work of angels would not tarnish. And again, I don't think that angels are going to concern themselves with the physical world. That's against angelic principles, unless we're dealing with fallen angels. Fallen angels would be more concerned with the world, with the physical, and less the spiritual. I've said it before, but I love the teachings of Jesus, and I also don't think that Jesus would build structures like this. I think they would make him sick. This is of the world. He said, if you love the world, you don't love me, because he represented the unseen, the spirit within, the spirit of God. And though he started out as a carpenter, he renounced this work and died homeless. this, if we're to believe these teachings. So again, I lean more towards this potentially being an oppressive world, the perfect world, not a blemish. And because I do this research, I often imagine myself in this world, in a world where nothing but these structures exist. And honestly, it seems oppressive. Even our world seems oppressive to me. Towering skyscrapers, just as imposing and unnecessary. Since I was 14 years old, I wanted nothing but to live in a cabin in the woods. And that's coming from our world.
do.
If I lived in this world, I
Well, like, sorry.
absolutely would want to move to the woods and live in a cabin.
I
And they
do.
probably would have called me a witch. I would have left this organized star city. I mean, this is a complete controlled system here, walled in. Again, usually we discuss the impossibility of people in this time period to build like this. Let's really consider what kind of life this is. Sure, maybe it's wonderful, but you're in this city. We see windmills on the edges here. We see the absolute controlling and directing of water, irrigation, crops, and organized living. Very socialist, giant imposing structures, and then just a bunch of regular old housing. It kind of reminds me of the massive building we were looking at in Paris in my last video. The building that took up at least 10 blocks, just like a giant apartment.
So I do want to talk about like the building materials and the agriculture within a lot of these designs. I think that this is definitely a step up from what we're doing now, especially with the stonework. Like these are like materials that are much, that can withstand so much more, especially with the elements, but also if there's any kind of attacks, whether it be what we're calling nuclear. Anyways, it's especially because of the materials being used, like I was saying. And there's also been times throughout history when there's been wars, internal wars, external wars, and so there have been, and there's still gated communities everywhere, but this is to protect people from the inside of getting from getting attacked from people on the outside, right? And so you have to just look at kind of like when these were built, the reasons why, and why other things were added on with it. And I hope that makes sense. And then with the agriculture, like I do believe that there needs to be like a certain percentage of people living in more rural areas, and obviously like having people still within the suburbs and cities. We don't want them to be ghost major cities like we see all over the world, including on island nations and stuff like that, where there was like huge cities that were built, but it was based on acquiring resources and resources within those areas, and it was a lot of men that were brought in, and then prostitution and stuff like that as well. But in order to just do work, and then once the company was able to exploit or exhaust all of its resources, and they leave, and then everyone with it. And we see that too with like mining towns and stuff like that. When there's no more mines or plants or whatever, then people within that area that were only there to work in and around those facilities, they end up having to leave as well because there's no more work. But anyway, there should be people that are growing crops of varying degrees, and people that are managing the soil, people that are raising animals, and then again, like providing produce to local grocery stores and things like that as well. And less reliant on this being shipped from other countries, right? We are Canada. We are resource abundant, and there's no excuse why people can't get more into to growing crops and stuff like that, even little ones, like even within suburb areas. And this is against the law in some places, against the bylaw, where you can't grow agriculture, like even just like tomatoes and cucumbers in your backyard in some areas. And anyway, but we need to get back to that, because within these communities, if you're not getting your supplies shipped in, and you're not able to rely on like your internal communities to pick up the slack in those situations, then like this is where we have societal collapses as well. And within 3 days, people are raping and pillaging and going into other people's houses to steal their stuff because they're out of resources. And it takes usually anywhere between 24 to 72 hours, and then they expand outwards. And anyway, I'm going on all these tangents, but we need to have more people willing to do what we're considering to be hard jobs, not glamorous jobs, or not going to make you rich and famous, because these are more important. And actually quality of life is also, like, you can argue it's in many cases, it's a better quality of life. Being more out in nature, usually more conservative, traditional in nature, usually having at least a family or people to assist you with what you're doing, and like being more exposed to nature, like I'm saying. And so like even like the healing benefits with trees being able to filter your environment and assist with heat, as well as wind protection and all those other things. Anyway, tangent, sorry.
Building. Yes.
And they had to
it
be
was-
skilled labor as well, right? So a lot of these the stonework and the sculptures and the designs that are in these and these murals and these paintings, this artwork, it's incredible. This is we're not able to duplicate that at all. And also with these types of buildings and bridges and dams and things that he's saying is unnecessary. These elicit creativity and artistry in people, and so we're missing that, right? Like people are very much like we're missing our creative side of the genius. So even with like musical talents and stuff like that, and with paintings and with sculptures, and I don't know if I already said music, but these are all like people get inspiration from their environments, their surroundings. Perception is reality, and we're not getting inspired anymore. We're not getting our creative sides accessed anymore, and it's unfortunate because it's very important that we're connected with the creative side and the more like what you'd call, I don't know, like rational side or whatever, and or logical, whatever.
Beautiful and ornate and built of the finest quality, hence why it still stands. Do you really want to live in one of those windows? Just one little apartment? I mean, look at this world. Here you go. You just arrived to this city. Where are you going to live? Going to live in this cathedral. Okay, back here you have a giant mansion with multiple windows. So there you go. You're going to rent a room? Or maybe it's a harmonious world and you just get a room. Everyone gets a free room in these hotel-like buildings. No, thank you. I don't want a room. Again, I'll go out and build a cabin. No wonder these people are all standing around looking stupid. What are you going to do? Just going to stand around. You don't know what to do. There's no jobs because the world is already built. You're happy to get a room, and then what? Boring. Come out and stand in the street in the snow. Maybe take a stroll down to the cathedral, offer up a prayer. Look at this thing. It's scary. Yeah, I think so. I think this is dark. Perfect, yet dark. Beautiful, and yet unsettling. Why? Even if it was a machine generating power from the ether, an old...
What he means by generating power from the ether is if you look at the materials that are being used that conduct electromagnetism or electricity. You've got like superconductors of electricity that are used in a lot of the materials at the top here. And these to me are antennas. And these were not things that were built post build. These were built as part of the design. And even within the columns, there's also ways to harness energy in a more efficient way. And I've talked about this in other videos, just like the breakdown of like how it's able to again generate more energy more efficiently. And then you'll also see like a bunch of columns. And I believe to have like possibly like iron ore or something like within inside the structure. And I believe that these were also in order to generate some type of energy.
Used up machine that's been cooked out from the last reset. Unnecessary. Again, I get all my power from 3 solar panels that just sit in the sun. I could move them under my arm. What is this really for? This is not to pray. This is beyond anyone's needs. Okay, let's just say it was producing as much power as a modern power plant. Great. Okay, how many do we need? And these might be the most insulting buildings. You need a building like this to create laws to govern the affairs of people? Totally insulting, totally ridiculous. But what about in the old world? What about the people that really built it? If it was a machine, great. Okay, What about the people? What about the needs of the people? What about individual housing with some cozy feel? Here we go, a free energy fireplace. This is it. This is your cozy interior. Curl up by the fire. Oh, this wasn't made for burning wood. Okay, so you just toss a little chunk of radium in here and it begins to glow. So now you're just going to curl up around the glow of radium, and that's great. That would be just fine, but it's not cozy. I'd rather sit around my wood stove, hear the crackling of the imperfection and quite possibly inefficient burning of wood. So I don't know, maybe some of you find coziness in this old, cold world, but personally, I don't. As an artist, I see the beauty and the perfection, and I also see a type of imposing dark rule. Right now, I'm going to propose that we may have been slaves, just like we read in the Old Testament.
Or
We
even
begin
indentured slaves, you know,
as
just
slaves
justification.
to the Egyptians, to a great but also potentially corrupted people. And I think we are the meek. We have inherited the earth and we don't celebrate it. Perhaps there is wisdom in the erasing of history. I've learned in my own life that I can have great successes if I don't talk about my plans. And is that what we're seeing here? Are we the product of a people that have been set free from oppression and we don't even know it? What if you freed a people and didn't tell them? Now, I think a reason for this could be if you want to control the people, if you have freed them, but now you plan on controlling them. It's not really a pure liberation. It's just swapping rulers. And I think that this is more likely, whatever the case, an effort to obscure the existence or knowledge of the past occupants of this world. A great proof to me is a building like the Call Building in San Francisco. The original, an old world skyscraper, is destroyed in a fire, and they rebuild it and renovate it through the years. And what we can see is the original floors were huge, built for a giant people, a skyscraper built for large people. Again, the overly built structures that would be difficult to heat and cool with their tall ceilings. And when they renovated the Call Building, they added more floors. They shortened each floor. And we would probably find this narrative repeated, but I think this is a clue. The people were not much different than us, just a little larger. And after this reset, the atmospheric conditions may have changed, and giant creatures may not have fared as well. Even around the time of the World's Fair, humans and their babies were not faring well, hence the need for inventing the incubator, helping infants breathe and develop. Now, this is not necessary today. In some rare cases, yes, but this may have been not too far after the cataclysm, and the conditions became more favorable as time progressed. And I should stress that there was a lot of ordinary structures. And even these old apartment buildings, the ones that look modest, are here too soon. Here we see a horse and wagon in the forefront and a completely built out city and in ruins. If we look at the brick here, we can see that it's in absolute ruins and yet built with these super tall floors. It's to say that the world was not too different. People surrounded by elegance, but ultimately living in similar conditions, packed into buildings made of brick. I guess a city is great if the people are great, that's all. Would I want to live in one of these cubicles and walk these streets? I don't know. It depends. If people were having a great old time all over the place, then yes. But if everyone was just rushing to work, to and fro, busy, no thank you. Again, I'll retire to the country and listen to a stream flow. Here we go. Pick an apartment. What are you going to do? This world sucks. I mean, it's so perfect and yet so depressing. I mean, I'm just sharing my thoughts. Some of you might say this is wonderful. I would love to live in one of these apartments in a
Yeah, most of
concrete
them are
jungle,
military
an
barracks. They're not,
old
but
world
interesting.
concrete jungle for your pleasure, really seeming like a hive colony. And I could be wrong, but I am stretching my mind this morning. I mean, go ahead, plop yourself in someone's shoes in this world. See how you feel. Plop yourself in this world. What are you even doing here? Some people ask, why would the Native Americans live out in nature when there were cities like this? Really, the cities were just a big mess, even the ones that were in good shape. To occupy these cities means rebuilding and doing a lot of cleanup. Much easier to pitch a teepee by a stream and hunt deer. Much easier than involving yourself with this. Just looking at the aftermath of this catastrophe.
You know, I live in a cabin, log cabin, chalet type style, whatever you want to call it, like in the woods. And I also have a property in Quebec that's off grid. It's literally just a hunting cabin on a bunch of acres. And I will say though, as a primitive survivalist, it is very hard to hunt, and so it is longer. And it's actually a lot more expensive nowadays as well, right? Because you have to, depending on if you have a PAL or an RPAL, you don't need an RPAL in order to hunt. You just need a PAL, possession acquisition license, what we call it in Canada. But if you have an RPAL, you have to have a gym membership. Sorry, gym membership. You have to have a range membership. My goodness. Oh, this morning I'm struggling. You have to have a range membership. And then every 5 years you have to renew your PAL or your RPAL, and it's getting the courses as well. You have to take the hunter safety course as well, and then you take the restricted and then the non-restricted courses. It's a couple $100. Ranges can vary between $200 and $700 a year, and then the guns and the ammo themselves are very expensive. And if you want to hunt, you have to get tags. It has to be. It's all very. It can be expensive. And then like you might not necessarily even catch animals like in a hunting season. And but I mean if you're on your own land. Anyway, but yeah, and it's hard, like growing, like planting gardens for food. That's also a lot of work. Even raising chickens and managing chickens and other livestock like that is time consuming, and yeah. So is that easier than going to like the corner store, like from your house 2 minutes away and grabbing food for a couple dollars? I don't know. But I see where he's coming from. I know where he's coming from. I'm just like, again, I'm just being like a bit of a devil's advocate in this reaction video.
Catastrophe should be enough reason to not engage in this city again. But I think what is certain is what we do discuss week after week. These are not the builders of these cities. This is not our world as far as the architecture goes. And fast forward to today, and we still can't get it right. We still can't produce buildings like this. We can't even house all of our people. And if we can, we're not interested. I mean, I should say those that are in control. I think what's certain in this old world is that money was not an object. There was no budget. And in our world, that's all it comes down to. Our world creates homelessness, but this past world may have also. It's unlikely that they would just let any person off the streets move into any one of these buildings. That would be nice, but I'm sure it wasn't like that. When we see how perfect everything is, it seems unlikely that the system of control would be any less perfect. And maybe we are better off today than we were, at least as humans, in this past world. I can't say. Maybe this was a glory period where we inherited this world from our oppressors and would be allowed to just freely wander around for 100 years before a new form of oppression would take hold again. So for now, I think I've ranted enough. Let me know what you think. What do you think about the old world? Was it benevolent or was it potentially malevolent? As always, I don't know. I thank you all for joining me. Do have a blessed day. I love you all, and I'll see you next week.
That was great. Sorry, I was just coordinating some stuff here. Okay, so I'm going to carry on with the Nancy Pelosi, Jimmy Dore video because there is a section in it that...
So Tucker Carlson's interviewing that. Remember the movie The Wolf of Wall Street starring, what was his name? DiCaprio or Leonardo DiCaprio? And so watch this. This is what he has to say about it.
It appears that members of Congress consistently beat the S&P 500 in their personal investments.
Nancy Pelosi.
And a lot of others.
Right.
And Pelosi especially.
She's the famous one.
Yeah. So how does that, is Nancy Pelosi, do you think, a stock picking genius?
No, she has to be operating on information that's non-public, or there's not.
Wouldn't that make her a criminal?
Yeah, but look at Joe Biden right now. I mean, look what's going on right now. Like this. Listen,
do you think he's a good stock picker?
Joe Biden? No, I think he's great at laundering money, though.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly,
apparently.
From what I've seen right now, I don't get it. Like, just imagine if it was Trump who was president.
Yeah.
But every single day in the front page of the New York Times, the Washington Post, and every other publication would be like $40,000 check or $20,000 check from his brother. Like, it'd be game over. Cries for impeachment.
Oh yeah.
It'd be like the world falling down. He's in China's pocket. But it's like we're living in an alternative universe right now where people in power, especially on the left, right, can operate almost with impunity. And Pelosi's a perfect example. She's not the only one, but it's inconceivable that someone could have that high return on the market when everyone else can't do it.
So I think it is. Well, here's some of the stock trades. So this is from January 2021. He bought 5 million in Tesla stock while pushing electronic vehicle subsidies before President Biden mandated all federal vehicles must be electric. Oh, I wonder.
Wow.
Then exercised $2 million in Microsoft options 2 weeks before Microsoft won $22 billion Army contract for high-tech headsets to the U.S. Army. Then in June, buys up to $11 million worth of mega cap tech stocks amid House tech legislation. And then in June 22nd, buys up to 5 million options in chip maker NVIDIA before vote on $52 billion new chip maker subsidies. So, here's
You know what, Jimmy, I have a real quick question.
What?
Can you go back to the next slide, where it says 321 exercised 2 million in Microsoft? I wonder how many calories that burned.
Okay, all right. So there's a little bit more. In September of 22, they bought $5 billion in Google before the proposed ban on Congress's stock trading, right? Then in November, bought 2 million in NVIDIA call options. NVIDIA stands to profit from CHIPS Act. December of 23, reportedly buys Karuna Therapeutics shares before sale to Bristol Myers Squibb. Stock nearly doubles, okay? And those stock trades are called coincidences, okay?
Yeah.
That's why they call a group of coincidences a portfolio of coincidences. Okay. So then this is so bad. This isn't new, by the way.
Nope.
So 60 Minutes was onto this in 2011. 2011, 60 Minutes did a
13 years
story
ago.
about, and included in it was Nancy Pelosi's insider trading. And here's a little bit of it.
And former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her husband had participated in at least 8 IPOs. One of those came in 2008 from Visa, just as a troublesome piece of legislation that would have hurt credit card companies began making its way through the House. Undisturbed by a potential conflict of interest, the Pelosi's purchased 5,000 shares of Visa at the initial price of $44. 2 days later, it was trading at $64. The credit card legislation never made it to the floor of the House. Congresswoman Pelosi also declined our request for an interview, but agreed to call on us if we attended a news conference.
Madam Leader, I wanted to ask you why you and your husband back in March of 2008 accepted and participated in a very large IPO deal from Visa at a time there was major legislation affecting their credit card companies making its way through the House. And did you consider that to be a conflict of interest?
I don't know what your point is of your question. Is it?
Of course you don't.
He said, is that a conflict of interest? What's your point? Of course it is. What the fuck's wrong with you? That's how things run here, okay? I don't understand what you're trying to do here. Yeah, we do insider trading. We do it right out in the open. You got a problem with that? Go fuck yourself, okay? What's your point? What's your point, she says. What's your point?
No.
They operate with impunity, and that's the name of their hedge fund, impunity.
I think Hillary put it best when she said, what difference would it make?
Yeah, remember that? So there's a little bit more to this clip.
Some point that you want to make with that?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, do you think it's all right for a speaker to accept a very preferential, favorable stock deal
Well, we
And
didn't.
you participated in the IPO.
Well, I have many
And at the time,
investments,
you were
but I
Speaker
don't
of the House. You don't think it was a conflict of interest or had the appearance
No,
of a
it's
conflict
not.
of
It
interest?
doesn't. It only has.
No, not at all. We were just doing
We did it
legislation for
before
Visa.
we voted
and,
on the other stuff.
Visa's everywhere you want it to be, and it's just.
We did it before we, they like things became successful. Like just days, weeks, hours before things blew up or fell. We just happened to, predict the future.
Ask my husband Paul. He knows where it's going to be ahead of time. That's all.
Exactly.
He probably just wanted those cash reward points.
That's all. That's
airline miles.
If I was 60 Minutes, I would ask Nancy Pelosi, who should I bet on in the fifth at Belmont? Okay, here we go.
As if you decide that you're going to have elaborate on a false premise, but it's not true, and that's that.
I don't understand what part's not true.
It's not true, and that's that. That's that. So, what do you, Kim? You have anything to say about the Pelosi's insider training?
Is that guy still around, or is he taken out back like Joe Biden to pasture?
No, Steve Croft no longer on 60 Minutes. That's for sure. Yeah, they said he retired. I don't know if you know.
Yeah. Like Joe Biden.
Just like Joe Biden. That's right. We actually played in Delaware, Joe Biden's hometown, and anyway, it was a fantastic time. Who gives a shit? But this is the kind of stuff they do right out in the open. And we're going to talk about Eric Adams when it comes up. But how does this, like, no one cares? I even had Dennis Kucinich on my show, who I love. He's now running as an independent because the Democrats hated the fact that he told the truth about the Democrats. So they gerrymandered him right out of his own district. And when I had him on my show, Russell Dobular from the Due Dissidents, he asked Dennis Kucinich, do you think we should, yes, let's hear it for Russell. Everybody loves Russell. We asked him, he asked Dennis Kucinich, do you think we should prosecute Nancy Pelosi for insider trading? And he didn't want to. And it's like, what is that about? Why do you think nobody wants to prosecute? I think it's because they're all doing it.
Yes.
Right? Because they did pass the Stock, I think it was called the Stock Act, and then which meant that they couldn't do that kind of shit. And then the next year, Barack Obama and everybody in Congress repealed it. So the Stock Act, I think it was called the Stock Act, and it got big headlines. Oh, look, they're clamping down on insider trading. And the year later, they got rid of all that legislation, and that didn't make any headlines whatsoever. Yeah. Anyway.
They're the only seniors that don't get caught up in the kind of scams where you lose your money.
Come see us on tour. Be in Tempe, Arizona with a special celebrity guest on the.
Anyway, was there anything else that I'm missing here? Justin Trudeau is trying to become the next UN Secretary General. Oh my God, the UN Secretary General. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I don't think that's a good idea at all. Or people are not looking at his current resume. What the fuck? But again, it's the UN, and this has the potential of being a good organization, whatever you want to call it. But it's there are people at the top, and then people that are affiliated in multiple different countries that are involved in human trafficking, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, all of that stuff. Believe it or fucking not. And they're hiding under the umbrella of the UN so that people won't question it, right? Like, who's going to question people that are doing philanthropic work or religious work or what they're seeing as humanitarian aid or services? People are less inclined to call people out within these organizations because, again, there's that stigma or whatever you want to call it, or the reluctance. And that's why they always get away with it.
This device is
cool. This is how to make a super Wi-Fi signal receiver with copper plates.
Actually a signal receiver, and it can cover up to 20 kilometers. It lets you experience the internet anytime, and it's very easy to make. The materials are cheap. The cost is only a few dollars. With it, even in the wilderness, you can have a super strong signal. Today, I will share this method with you. This is his blueprint. You can save it.
Wait, I just want to go back. Has like the 37.
Save it. Anyway. First, prepare the materials. Cut 7 circular copper plates. The size must follow the markings on the blueprint. Then find a 15-centimeter screw rod and some nuts. Next is the assembly part. Install the circular copper plates on the screw rod in order from large to small, and use nuts to fix the position on both sides of the copper plates. The distance between the two copper plates. Also follow the distance given on the blueprint. Then install a base. Then find a wireless network card. Take the antenna apart. Open the plastic protective case. Expose the copper wire. Put the antenna through the copper plates, and then solder them together. Finally, install the wireless network card and fix it. Now the super Wi-Fi signal receiver.
Doesn't that kind of look like those like stun gun things, or like the what like the alien? Again, I don't believe in aliens, but the aliens, you know, what the guns that they use. Oftentimes they have those like the same kind of like barrel type devices at the end of their gun. Anyways.
Is ready.
Interesting.
Let's see how it works. Connect the computer. Adjust the direction. The computer immediately shows many available networks. Just try one. The speed is very fast. When you go out, you can fix it on the roof of the car. Then the computer
ray
can
guns, whatever they call it, I don't know.
Connect to the internet anytime and anywhere. The speed will be very fast. This is really a very amazing invention.
Anyway, that was cool. I have physio to go to. It's like an hour away from my house. So on that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.